が道行くぜ戦え戦え戦え戦え戦えオタキン愛する人を捨てて駆け抜けるもの輝く未来信じ夢を託してT シャツ濡らす汗男の勲章涙止まらないぜときめき忘れないぜ心のリフレイ流れゆく時を超え生まれ変わるさオタクと呼ばれる時がいつか来る青春の瞬間をつなぎ止めるぜ邪魔はさせない我が道行くぜ戦え戦え戦え戦え戦えオタキン永遠に変わらない俺の信念振り向きはしないそれがオタク道人生の何もかも捨てちまったぜ目指すは世界 I'll be the greatest man 戦え戦え戦え戦え戦えオタキン
Watch every March Madness game live, all in one place. With YouTube TV, subscription required. Cancel anytime.
Battle Reaver 世界の
球のピンチいつだってすくう出せるし誰だ駅伝準検修行中エンジン相棒ゴーンちゃん真剣侍チャンバラだ天使が彼女の個性じゃド派手な外国豪快じゃ匿名ミッションコーバスターズ荒れると恐竜止めてみな列車で旅する特急車おやつ三代二忍者中央十万十ランド救援究極救世主リパバと正義は二つあるそういう一つに言うそうだマシンときらめくきらめいちゃう機械も友達正解じゃ未来の果てまでセンターワン数えたい絶対覚えてみたいスーパー戦隊レッツゴーみんな憧れる Everyday 豪快レッツゴーパイレーツいつも僕らのナンバーワンで最高 Yes しびれる海賊戦隊豪快じゃ
When it comes to energy, you have options. But year after year, more Texans choose TXU Energy, and no other provider welcomes back more customers. It's good to be back where I can rest easy with a plan that helps me save when I need it most.
It's great to be back where the savings are easy and automatic.
And when people come home to TXU Energy, they've got a lot of great things to say. Being back with TXU Energy just feels right.
Oh, thanks for house sitting.
I might have overdone it.
TXU Energy. Energy for everything.
In a fast-paced world, it's hard to keep up. Until now. Introducing T-Mobile Fiber Home Internet with the bandwidth and speeds you need to put you a step ahead. Get faster with T-Mobile Fiber, starting at just $55 a month with a 5-year price guarantee.
Okay, wait a minute. I have to. Yes, I do. Okay, good. I have to double check sometime when I got the thing on. But yeah, it's gonna be a pretty simple stream today. We're just doodling, because I'm trying to finish this birthday present for my buddy Basil. Uh, I'm almost done. Hold on, let me put the little reference pic in here. I put the reference pic in here. Okay, so yeah, that's the plan for today. And I do apologize for starting late because I try to clean up real good before I start streaming. I just really got into it. I do, man. You gotta, go to clean space, declutter your stuff. You know what I mean? Clean your room, bucko, as they say. Uh, as you can see, we got some ranges over here. Everything's good. I am, same old channel, uh, I'm still traumatized from that gym talk video. I'm not gonna lie. Cause why? Why? I'm still just like scratching my head as to why would you do that? Just weird. But that is the goal for today's stream. But then also, instead of usually watching the click, because I like his videos, I want to do something slightly different. Watch this one video about BoJack Horseman, because like I've like enjoyed that show a lot over like the last few years. So that's definitely something that's definitely something I'm gonna take a look at today while I draw is this picture. That's pretty much what you see, what you get type of stream. So there you go. So let's get started.
So here's everything Princess Carolyn learned throughout BoJack Horseman. She has honestly always been my favorite character of this show due to the excellent portrayal of her compulsive need to help others and work rather than working on herself. It's an extremely relatable conflict that only gets further developed and elaborated on as the seasons continue, to the point where she became more textured than I ever could have thought from the first couple episodes when we met her. And by the end of the series, she has developed so much as a person and overcome so many hardships that her happy ending feels incredibly rewarding and deserved.
Oh well.
Probably the largest lesson that Princess Carolyn has to internalize in this show is that she doesn't have to and often has to accept that she can't do everything all on her own. We see this most prevalently through her journey to become a mother, which is a core part of her arc throughout the entire show. Even with all her vying for professional accomplishments, which I'll talk a lot about in this video, we see time and time again how she does really look for something real and stable. A relationship that could carry her into the future to be able to secure that life that she believes will actually fully satisfy her. Like she does with BoJack in the episodes Say Anything in Season 1, after he offers to take her out and shows a ton of sudden drunken interest in her. Even though she knows that he is prone to patterns of intense romance, only to fall off into depression and cast her away at the end of it. And also with Rutabaga in Season 2, even though she is aware that he is cheating on his wife with her, she opens herself up to him and invests her emotional health in their relationship, believing that they could have a stable future. But since both of them result in heartache and pain, BoJack leaving for his own journey with Herb, and Rutabaga going back to his wife, since every single time she opens herself up even a little bit, she's struck back down by reality, she resolves once again to make herself happy only through her career, to forge ahead as an agent without looking back and earn quick satisfaction from small career wins. But we also see that this doesn't really fully complete her, as at the end of the aforementioned episode, as she looks out at the coast, she feels rather empty. I'll elaborate on this more later. And in Season 3, with her career in the most busy period of her entire life due to her distracting from her personal failures with professional success more than ever, she barely has time to even look. Even though she does make a connection with a handsome mouse, Ralph, she still feels tied to her business, Having been hurt so many times in the past, she struggles to make that leap, especially considering the fact that she is still trying to get her agency off the ground in the first place. I do believe that Judah helps her begin to break out of her shell here, not only setting up those dates, albeit kind of on a misunderstanding, but also encouraging her to allow him to take a larger role in the company, to
Oh my god. Oh, also, for context, little good boy right here is Basil's old dog, Seamus, and he lost him last year. So like, I wanted to draw this little picture for him for his birthday. 'Cause he's had him since he was like a teenager. So yeah.
share her work and delegate so that it isn't all on her own shoulders. It's a start, at the very least. But when she loses it all, she finally has the time to consider what is actually next for her life, what she has been putting off, and make that step toward Ralph, eventually moving to start their own family. However, moving on past that next step is more difficult than she could have ever anticipated, as she and Ralph struggle to conceive a child. She's even kind of mocked by different people for wanting to try, like Vanessa Gecko or even her own doctor. I just like that guy.
How old are your kids now? I don't have any children. Oh, little Kathleen, you're still... Anyway.
What do you recommend?
Have you considered impregnating a younger woman?
But it is definitely emblematic of how society treats people who make the decision to start a family perhaps later than the age you're supposed to make it, which I think is generally way too young anyway. And even after a glimmer of hope appears through Filbert, she ends up losing the child, and it's here that we really feel the depth of this issue, as when Ralph suggests they look into other options such as surrogacy or adoption, Princess Carolyn will not hear of it. She wants to continue trying, to continue going through these extremely painful losses over and over again because she feels that she was made to do so. That because her mother was able to easily have so many children, even though she didn't particularly appreciate them, she should be able to achieve this for herself, as she actually desperately wants them and would care for them. However, sometimes reality can just be flat out unfair, and it just isn't something she will be able to do on her own. Timing, health, circumstances, they've unfortunately combined to block this path for her, and there's really no way to force her way onto it. It takes her a while to reckon with this, even separated from Ralph because of his suggestion to get help from others, and for some other reasons that I'll get into later as well, then sinking into a deep depression, drinking her days away, and not even finding any joy in her work, as we are so used to seeing from her. But Todd is able to sort of jolt her back to reality, and remind her that if she wants to achieve any sort of happiness, she needs to go out and seek it. That succumbing to the grief and sadness, all to hold up the belief that you can do it all on your own, is a mistake, and will ultimately result in her missing out on everything she wants. It's then that she is able to finally begin to accept help from others in this endeavor, to go to an adoption agency and truly put some trust and faith into other people besides herself, instead of trying to fix everything on her own. And you know, as much as this place that she goes to kind of sucks and scams her out of a lot of money, which is good commentary, they do lead her to what she's always wished for at the end of the day. They introduce her to Sadie, and although it is Princess Carolyn's own ability to empathize with her that actually secures that ability to adopt Ruthie, her choosing to get this aid led her to attain what she wanted, and I appreciate that they depict that along with the system's flaws. Nothing's perfect. And honestly, by the end of the series, she has become much more adept at delegation. Her and Judah work as more partners in everything they do, taking care of Ruthie and making sure that both of them spend adequate time with her, as well as allowing them both to engage in the careers that bring them joy. They take care to show you how Princess Carolyn takes time off to be with her and her partner, and places a ton of importance on both her work and her personal relationships. That balance and ability to organize her time such that she maximizes her own potential potential for happiness shows a ton of growth in her ability to trust in other people and build a true community that can uplift and support her while she goes after the lifestyle that she has always wanted. She has friends that help her, a partner that shares the workload, and enough time for herself to be able to really feel complete in all aspects of life. It's not as if it's cluttered, crammed, or stressed anymore. She feels relaxed as things are as they should be. But I appreciate that they also show that it is still difficult for her to let go of that I can do it all myself mentality. In the finale, she tells Bojack that she feels it is a part of her, and that she isn't her if she allows someone to take care of her. Now, as the finale well establishes, she is grown enough to be able to take the leap and marry Judah anyway. This is a fictional scenario where Bojack has to convince her to do so, which she didn't need, but I believe these are still legitimate fears of hers that speak well about how far she's come and how development doesn't equal a complete monumental change right away where she didn't even think about this anymore. I'm sure over time Princess Carolyn will learn to allow Judah to care for her more as a reflex, a habit, but she's still working on it. We only knew her from 2014 to 2020, and even in that period, she made a massive leap in being able to accept aid from other people. Another really difficult lesson that played an extremely important role in the rest of her life is that she is not responsible for other people's recovery. She doesn't have to help everyone around her, especially if it drags her down in the process. When she's a teenager, she's the only sibling that remains with her mother. One of her brothers is in rehab, and the others aren't even really mentioned, supposedly just drifting away and losing contact with them. And she is the youngest, but keep in mind it's of a litter, so they were all born around the same time. She's the only one, though, who stayed, covering for their mother daily at work when she was too drunk, taking care of her when she didn't take care of herself, and ultimately enduring her verbal abuse day in and day out, because she feels the need to fix her, to look after her. She felt responsible for her own mother, even though she dreams of a life at UCLA, a life creating movies and stories like the Amelia Earhart tale that inspired her as a child. But it's extremely hard for her to just leave, especially considering her mother repeatedly implores her to stay or tries to crush her own dreams, even begging her to defer for a year, which would undoubtedly become 2, then 3 years, right before she boards the plane to leave. Being raised in this type of household where she had to prop everything up caused this inherent drive inside of her to prop them up as well. She is finally able to leave and say goodbye to her mother once and for all, but carries that need with her even as she travels away. I always wonder if there's a bit of regret deep down within Princess Carolyn about leaving her mother. We don't get much context about her relationship and her family. She never really talks to her siblings in the show, like, at all, and we never get any indication that Princess Carolyn saw Cutie Cutie after she boarded that plane to LA. I feel like she knew that if she ever decided to go back to them, any of them, she would fall into those same patterns and feel the need to take care of them and dedicate her time to helping them out. And so a clean break was really the only way that she was able to emotionally handle it. However, that left her with this sort of unfinished feeling inside. She never got closure. A small bit of wonder was always in her about what she could have done. A fantasy about the happy ending that she might have had if she had just tried a little harder, stuck around a little bit longer. And I believe this is why, in her later years, even apart from her family, she still falls into this pattern of feeling this requirement to repair the damage in those around her, and is often drawn to extremely broken people. Because we see it time and time again throughout the show itself, mainly with Bojack. As I stated earlier, they had a long, winding relationship with a ton of baggage attached. But no matter how badly he may hurt her, she always finds her way back to him, wanting to help him, wanting to guide him, to be that person she believes that he could be. She often pushes him, prods him, and from his perspective, can be a little bit too critical of him when she's trying to get him to do something, or do something for himself, as we see in Best Thing That Ever Happened.
Is it any wonder I don't want to be around you? All you do is tell me what a terrible person I am.
Even after trying to drive away from the restaurant, after Bojack resolves to set her free from him, to cut that tether that pulls her in when he needs a rock or a shoulder to cry on, she turns back.
Don't go back to the restaurant.
bring herself to just leave him behind completely. Even after she learns the depths of his mistakes, she resolves to aid him in the process of rehabilitating himself and his public image, because she wants desperately to see him succeed, to see him be better, to finally have a long-standing relationship in her life where she can see someone improve and perhaps make up for what she lost with her own family. I think what snaps her out of this is when Biscuits goes into intense detail about his various infractions. She resolved to be there for him and help him change, but when those mistakes are framed from the victim's perspectives and viscerally so, and even characterize their relationship as potentially unhealthy due to his power over her, she realizes that it's not really her job to fix Bojack, and she should be doing what she wants with her time, rather than scrambling to cover up his messes for some small satisfaction. She should be spending her time with her daughter, what truly makes her feel happy and complete. This is where she finally decides not to continue driving into the ditch along with Bojack to be able to pull him out. When they meet in the finale, he is definitely in a better place, which is why she's very kind and willing to perhaps work with him again in the future, but she is also definitively split from being his emotional buffer, intent on taking care of herself and her own family first, and to allow Bojack to take care of himself. She'll be there to listen, to encourage, as any friend does. But she is done cleaning up his messes for him, or trying to cover up his mistakes anymore. And I was super glad to see that portrayed before the show ended. But it isn't just for Bojack either. There are tons of examples of Princess Carolyn helping other characters in this series, mostly to make herself feel better. She states directly that it is a compulsive need that she has when her life is perhaps taking a wrong turn. Helping others helps her to feel useful, to feel stable, to harken back to how she felt when she was taking care of her mother and forget about how she left her, even though it was definitely the healthier choice for her own life. This is why she gives people jobs, works with them on projects, provides them a place to live. It's not necessarily solely out of compassion. I do believe that generosity and kindness are there, but it is also definitely to assuage her own feelings of discontent. But what's really interesting about her journey is that she also learns how to forgive others and still support them through difficult times, even after moving past this need to fix people. There is a balance to be struck, and her not wanting to fall into a pattern of devoting everything to aid others rather than working on herself does not mean she can't ever help other people again. You know, you have to clarify these things because so many people on the internet take everything you say way too far in one direction. Like, please chill. Of course she can still be there for her friends, as a good peer should. All she has learned is not to disrupt her own life, to invest her happiness in the well-being of others, and to make sure that she leaves time for herself and her own emotions rather than just fervently fixing other people's problems. But she, as all of his friends do, has a very tumultuous relationship with Bojack himself, and actually spends probably the most time with him out of any other cast member that we meet. Thus, he has hurt her so many times. Like, a number of times that's difficult to count, because they dated for like 14 plus years, and it was almost entirely during one of Bojack's lowest periods of his life. Considering how he treats her during the duration of the show, we can be sure that their relationship was filled with loud arguments and cruel insults. The key here is that's not all this relationship was. She says herself that she doesn't ever regret dating him, and that there were so many wonderful moments in this relationship, years of them, in fact. Princess Carolyn saw something inside of Bojack, saw who he could be, and it may be partly because of her innate desire to fix people, but I think there's a level of understanding that comes from her that is unique to her character. She truly wants the best for Bojack, and even when he hurts her, she finds her way to accepting his apology or that grand gesture, wanting to believe that that is the real Bojack, and trusting her impulse that it is, which is why she works so hard to secure opportunities for him, even when her bosses encourage her to drop him as a client, as he might even harm her career in the long run as a dead weight around her ankle. But she wants to believe that she can help to make things better for him, that there is a bright future in store for him. And in Season 6, as Bojack makes his journey through recovery, she is extremely supportive, wanting to join his friends and family celebrations, even though he feels he doesn't have anyone to invite due to the hurt he's caused. However, as I stated briefly earlier after the second Biscuits interview, her faith in their relationship begins to sway due to the negative characterization of it that Biscuits described that isn't really untrue, quite honestly.
You keep looking over to your manager. Can we talk about your relationship with her?
Princess Carolyn?
You dated her for 7 years?
Yes, and look, she's alive.
Did it ever get complicated, working with her while maintaining a sexual relationship?
Well, she's always been good at keeping her personal and professional lives separate.
You had sex with the president of your fan club. You had sex with your agent's assistant. You party with underage girls. You don't see a pattern here?
It's not a pattern.
But you do have power over people. And again, you abuse that power.
Before starting my journey at WGU, I transferred from a community college. It kind of gave me the chance to get my foot on in the door, and I didn't have as many credits to finish at WGU. So it just gave me that flexibility to be able to do my courses whenever.
Learn more now.
But even after this momentary distance in their relationship, she is still shown to be somewhat of a friend. Yes, she's perhaps not as fervent about helping him and distancing herself a bit to make sure she doesn't fall into the same patterns that I stated earlier, but she is also still kind to him, still willing to invite him to her wedding, even though it's not the actual one, it's the industry one. Although Diane and Todd are also there, so honestly, it does seem more like a personal event to me. Maybe their real wedding was super private, like for just them and like a couple other people, because Princess Carolyn does have an awfully lot of personal friends here, along with industry bigwigs. And regardless of the type of the wedding, she dances with Bojack and shares a lovely intimate moment with him anyway, while also giving him a bit of hope for the future. She cautions him not to jump too far into anything without fresh it always, but she is still willing to help him if he ever does get back into the entertainment business. I do believe that I Can Recommend Some Excellent People line was a little half-joke about herself, because she does seem content with the idea of maintaining a friendship with this Bojack in the future. She's not going to go head over heels to save him, of course, but she'll guide him in the right direction, try to ensure as a close friend that he's on the right track as much as a friend can without dragging themselves down with him. It's heartwarming to see this relationship potentially continue into the far future, even through all of those tough times, that because these two are shown to care for one another, with Bojack even admitting that he loves her at one point, they can forge a positive future for their relationship. Of course, they have to work on themselves first, but Princess Carolyn's ability to show some compassion toward Bojack and patience for him to be better is definitely admirable. To know that he is trying to be better than he was yesterday, and trusting him to hopefully provide the support that any human needs to actually be better. I believe they did a wonderful job striking a balance with Princess Carolyn, where she does indeed place boundaries for herself between her and Bojack, but still is able to resolve to be with him for the future. Not that it's wrong to distance yourself from him if you emotionally require that. Another very critical piece of wisdom that she picked up is that professional achievements cannot compensate for emotional difficulties or heartache. Whenever she was trying to distract herself from her own unsatisfying personal life, she sunk everything into her career, whether that be working for Vim, starting Vigor, or restarting Vigor as a management company. She loved her job as an agent. After all, she'd been dreaming about becoming one and making it big in the industry for over a decade in Hollywood. There is definite joy to be found for her in this career path, or at least the one it develops into as a manager, even though the show jokes about them being basically the same thing. However, this series does well to illustrate how only professional accomplishments will not lead to a fulfilling life. I don't believe that every person needs to settle down with a partner or have a family. That's not at all what I'm saying, but solely placing all of your eggs into one basket is never really a good idea. Because we as humans, or cats, ultimately need more than ambition and drive in our lives to be full. Like I mentioned before, in Say Anything, Princess Carolyn worked extremely hard to succeed in a very cutthroat environment. And while she does slip back into romance with Bojack for a bit, her heartbreak causes her to run back to that natural workaholic nature anyway. And at the end of the day, she feels rather empty after the adrenaline of beating Vanessa Gecko fades, and she's given even a moment to process what has happened in the past couple days. She looks out over the coastline and hears her phone chime that it's her birthday and realizes that another year has gone by without her really accomplishing what she wants, while Vanessa Gecko frankly gets to go back home to her loving family. We need hobbies, ways to relax, ways to decompress, friends, confidants, family, that are not just working to be able to be truly healthy. Firstly, because if you constantly force your brain to work without reprieve or any sort of passive activity, you're going to eventually burn out. It's just not possible. But also because if you never give yourself time to think about something besides the work, you're never going to be able to actually fully process and understand what you might be feeling. And without that time to breathe, those feelings of stress, frustration, and exhaustion will only build and build until they materialize in unexpected and unfortunate ways. Princess Carolyn across the series often becomes rather cruel to others when she sinks herself into her work, like when she doesn't recommend Laura for a promotion, even though she definitely deserves it, and then lies to her about it to secure a deal for a new film. Just not very nice. Or like the Princess Carolyn that we know, or how she abandons Todd in prison after she helped him stir up the David Boreanaz house, or when she tries to manipulate the assistants in season 6. There's lots of examples of her compromising her morality to further her own career, to chase that high of success that is the only thing that will make her feel good at certain times. However, thankfully, in season 6, she has developed enough to realize what she is doing wrong, and to bring Judah back to save the assistance movement so that they are able to get the basic rights that they deserve. It's a great way to signal how, because she has a more well-rounded lifestyle and is able to really keep in tune with her sense of self, she's able to jolt herself out of these marathons of cruelty that can accompany her career in the entertainment industry, even if she still does enjoy that career. But another part of this concept I really enjoyed seeing outlined was in Best Thing That Ever Happened, where Bojack asks PC why she even is an agent if it literally makes her miserable most of the time. And the best reason she can come up with is that she's just really good at it. That's never a requirement to do something. I feel like there's this really weird stigma surrounding talent that suggests when you show an affinity for a certain skill, it means it's your destiny to utilize it. It's not. And just because someone is good at something doesn't mean that they automatically enjoy it.
I'm good at driving silver, but I don't relish the opportunity.
Succeeding and being talented does not always result in personal fulfillment. It certainly can, but being gifted alone is never a good reason to do something. You need passion to guide the talent and focus it, or else it's just going to feel like a chore. And listen, as much as they joke about managers and agents basically doing the exact same thing, I do believe there is at least a subtle enough difference in the scope of those jobs to provide Princess Carolyn that satisfaction that she always wished for. She found a way to utilize her talents in a different, more desirable way for herself, even if the series may joke around about how nobody can tell the difference between the two careers. Managers can produce. That is the biggest change that I noticed. And honestly, I think that makes a world of difference for PC herself. She enjoys creating those stories, putting the directors and actors together like a puzzle to create the best tale possible. And like I mentioned before, it's due to how these very same stories inspired her to get out of her abusive relationship with her mother. She wants a world filled with beautiful, heartwarming, positive, uplifting tales for her own daughter to watch, and for other children to watch and grow up on, to be able to become more well-rounded, compassionate people. I also think the show does a wonderful job to illustrate that she understands these ideas, specifically in the episode Angela, where when given the opportunity for her dream studio and imagining the future, she only really wants to be with Judah. She even walks away from her work to go support his band and feels rather happy with her decision on the way there. Her cute little smile is so heartwarming, as she knows she's following what will truly help her to be more content in the long run. She knows now that professional achievements feel great, and she does love her work and needs to work to feel satisfied, but she also knows that she shouldn't place it above her personal life and emotional well-being. And that is such a wonderful piece of growth to see for this character specifically. Another great lesson we get from Princess Carolyn is that sometimes one of the great loves of your life might still not be one of the people you're meant to end up with, or the one who is best for your own emotional growth. Most obviously, this is expressed through her relationship with Bojack, specifically when he asks her why she still works with him and tries to help him after she knows what he's done in the past, and after he's fallen backward so many times. Her message about finding a specific sort of love only when you're young and stupid stupid definitely has some truth to it, though I probably shouldn't speak like I have any experience given how I am currently in that young and stupid period. But she's not saying that she'll never find love again, just that Bojack and her had a special relationship that will remain in her heart forever. That kind of love that she got when they were younger, she might never get to feel again. She spent a good deal of her life with this man, and there were definitely positive reasons for that. It wasn't just because she wanted to fix or help him. She states in Best Thing That Ever Happened that there were wonderful moments to their relationship that she will cherish for the rest of her life. Beautiful showcases of love from him that still mean a great deal with her. But ultimately, what she wanted out of her future was not feasible while being with him, as he was not willing to seriously commit to her or the idea of a family. He just wasn't able to make that leap, and wasn't in the right place for it yet either. So they had to break up if Princess Carolyn ever wanted to be fully at peace with her choices. It isn't for lack of love, it's just a mismatch of priorities, and a need for Bojack to be better on a timeline that isn't really realistic for him. But this can also be seen with Ralph Stilton, the mouse, who was a rather good match for her and provided her happiness for a very long while. But ultimately, a difference in opinion and worldview sometimes gets in the way. As we know, the real ending point is after Princess Carolyn's miscarriage, when he suggests that they get help to obtain a child. But honestly, I do think there was a disconnect in their relationship before he spoke up about other options. Although he did stand up for her to his parents, I do believe Princess Carolyn did harbor feelings of self-doubt from the situation regarding his parents and the extremely offensive traditions they observed for the Feast of Saint Squeaky. She states in Ruthie that she feels as if she's the difficult choice for him, that he wants things to be easy for them when she knows that it won't be for her. And at the time, she's determined to pursue that more strenuous path that involves more pain and heartache. I'm not saying she's right to, but this is what I believe caused the end of this relationship. And when they meet again by chance later in season 5, Ralph sort of tries to decide what happens next for her, inserting himself into the scenario that doesn't really have anything to do with him anymore. I think he kind of scares Princess Carolyn away here, and cements her belief that they don't work together as a couple. I'm not sure if he took things much slower and more patiently that he would have dated her once again for sure, but I certainly think it's a possibility. Either way here, Princess Carolyn decides that they do not work. That his life of being given everything on a silver platter and her life of having to work for everything she's ever had ultimately don't really combine well, as much spark as there was between them. It's something that can happen. Sometimes you're just too different. You see the world completely separately, and there's not much to be done to make those worldviews connect. But I also think, like I said before, a lot of their breakup has to do with timing. Ralph makes a step forward when she's not looking for one, and kind of scares her away. And also Princess Carolyn not wanting to accept help, but then being able to do that later. Sometimes that's just how life works out. And the last lesson that I want to discuss is that when you get what you wish for, it is so much different than you always perceived it would be. As much as I've spoken about Princess Carolyn's journey to motherhood and how positive it is for her in the end, one of the best things this series does is not portray everything as sunshine and rainbows as soon as she was able to adopt a child. In the new client, we get a very detailed depiction of how chaotic new motherhood can be, and how it isn't at all what many expect getting into becoming a parent. PC and her baby don't form this instant connection as soon as she sees her, as many pieces of media depict when a mother meets her child. For much of the episode, Princess Carolyn is pretty much going through the motions, completely exhausted with the process, and not feeling any of that fulfillment that she really expected to feel from this new path. She thought this was the happy ending, and that everything beyond it would be smooth sailing. And
you're 10 minutes late for work, but you were 20 minutes late yesterday. It's a good day for a good deal at Outback Steakhouse. Get down under favourites like the Aussie 3-course starting at $14.99 with...
And now, this is something she no longer has any choice in. This is her child now. It is her job to take care of it, no matter what anymore. This is exactly why you have to be careful what you wish for, as many fairy tales caution us. Consider exactly what it might be like. Read about other people's experiences and learn the reality of the situation before you choose to embark on it. You need to be absolutely sure. Luckily, Princess Carolyn is able to bond with her new baby and find an actual name for her, Ruthie. It's a very sweet and tender moment that was honestly a huge relief to see after an extremely stressful episode where their relationship was very uncertain. And even with her businesses and professional life, she really discovers that she can't just blindly hop into new opportunities without fully considering what comes next. She wanted to be an agent for decades before actually being given the opportunity, working under one and dreaming that one day she would get the chance. But when she's actually there, it's not as fun as she imagined it would be. As I spoke a lot about in this video, her being an agent was not actually the career she wanted in the end. It didn't end up fulfilling her, and in reality caused her a lot of pain. Her move at the end of season 2 is great to exclude Rutabaga, but she starts with very little understanding about how to run a business, or what that takes, like with her tomato making tomato sandwich analogy. Judah is able to help her after a little bit, but she does struggle with the major decision making and does not even feel as happy as she expected in this new leadership role. And eventually, because it wasn't ultimately a right fit, the business has to file for bankruptcy. On her second try with management, though I do believe it's only slightly different, she succeeds because she's much more willing to be flexible with her vision and understand that it's not always going to turn out how she expects. She doesn't have to control every little bit of it. She needs to let Judah in on the major decision making, trust him to make the right choices when it comes to the business's best interest. Ultimately, she doesn't know everything, where the biggest mistake in her agency was her pretending that she could barrel forward against Vanessa Gecko with the whole Jelly Bell and Flight of the Pegasus choice. This time, she is more able to accept other people's ideas and understand that she has still a lot to learn, even if this is the right and final path for her. Overall, Princess Carolyn is probably my favorite character in the series, if you couldn't tell from this video yet. She is so excellently characterized, elaborated on, and developed to feel like such a full, real, living woman, even though, you know, she's not a woman. She's still a cat. I keep making that mistake. Her journey through workaholism and her escaping the cruelty of the entertainment industry was honestly a highlight of the series for me, as well as her forgiving and extremely loyal nature to Bojack. It's refreshing in a show where their relationships are tested so heavily, but I am also glad that she was able to establish boundaries for herself, because that is equally important. She's a very balanced character by the end of this series, and while I do think that she has more developing to do, as none of us are ever really done, she has come such a long way in just 6 years, and because of that, I'm so confident that she will move on to a bright future, and has all of the lessons that she needs to make the right decisions in the future, even if she does struggle. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to support me further, you can go to patreon.com/positivity, that's POSITVTY. There you get all these videos before YouTube does. You can see them before I cut anything out, and you can tell me just what you want to see on the channel and help me edit my videos before they go up. It's a great way for y'all to get involved in the process, because I really do trust your opinions. But anyway, thank you for being here at all, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. You deserve it, you hard worker. Look at you go. You're doing amazing.
I love how much I can bundle and save on insurance and Liberty Bibbity.
And I love that you love how much you can bundle and
I love it. You love it.
I love that you...
You say it isn't a big deal. Just another 2 a.m. scroll through their stories, another text you didn't need to send, one more favor. But the truth is ugly. You're loving someone who isn't choosing you, and it's costing you sleep, focus, and your self-respect. saves kingdoms for Princess Bubblegum. Dipper rehearses the perfect confession that ends in a no. Isabella spends her entire summer asking, "What you doing?" while Phineas doesn't even notice. If any of that feels familiar, this one's for you. One-sided love is a sustained emotional investment without the matched intention, effort, or availability from the other person. You're in a relationship with a future that exists only in your head, not a present that you both share. Take Finn, who thought that heroism was romantic currency. Every crisis Princess Bubblegum faced, every emergency call, Finn was there. He thought that each rescue was building towards something, that effort plus time would eventually equal reciprocated love. The episode Too Young shows exactly how one-sided this investment was. When Princess Bubblegum gets de-aged to 13, Finn sees an opportunity here. Maybe the age gap was the only barrier. They go on a date, they work together on pranks, and for a brief moment, Finn thinks his persistence is finally paying off. He finally has a relationship with this person that he always wanted. But even at 13, Princess Bubblegum treats their time together kind of like a science experiment. She's testing her instant bath serum on him, focused on everything except the cheersome romantic side of things. To her, she's just getting comfortable while they work. The episode ends with them sharing a kiss, but only because she needs the heat from a whopping love hug to catalyze her transformation back to her adult age. Thanks, Amy. And the moment she transforms back to adult form, Finn nervously asks Princess Bubblegum for another hug, but gets rejected immediately.
Do you want to hug some more?
What? Finn, you silly. That was like 5 years ago. You really gotta move on.
Oh, yeah. Sorry.
In Incendium, we can see the psychological damage that this kind of relationship causes. During a casual hangout, Princess Bubblegum draws Jake onto her lap, but when Finn tries to do the same thing, she pushes him away without hesitation.
Finn. No. Come on, Finn. Don't be weird.
Well, that's some years of heroic service summarized in 3 words, and Finn falls into some serious depression because of it, singing all gummed up inside about feeling hopeless. Jake has to physically intervene because Finn is deteriorating from years of sustained rejection that he never saw coming. That's when reality eventually hits Finn. Princess Bubblegum was never building towards some kind of romance. Every heroic rescue, every crisis call, every moment that Finn thought of as some kind of romantic progress was actually just friendship and appreciation from her perspective. She was consistently kind, but kindness isn't consent to a relationship that someone doesn't want. Effort doesn't equal romance. It all leads to his outburst in Burning Love. The moment Finn thinks he's finally found real love and moved on from PB, she comes back saying he can't be with Flame Princess.
I was in love with you, okay? And you didn't love me back.
But this time he's done. He's learned and he's moved on from PB. He's moved on from her. And that's kind of the truth of one-sided love. You can spend years building a relationship that only exists in your head, while the other person has no idea what you're even doing, or that you're even trying, or that you're even aiming for a romantic relationship, just like PB. But Finn's mistake was never seeing the real hints, and never even asking directly or having an honest and open conversation with her, which is the polar opposite of Dipper. Dipper did everything Finn didn't. He got a clear, honest answer in Into the Bunker, but not how you'd expect. Dipper spends most of the episode torn between confessing his feelings to Wendy and protecting their friendship. Every time he gets close to telling her how he feels, he chickens out, too scared of ruining what they currently have. But when the shapeshifter attacks and nearly kills Wendy in that underground bunker, Dipper has to face the possibility that she or he could die, making the risk of emotional rejection seem a bit more manageable. The fear of losing her forever becomes much stronger than his fear of being rejected, and in that life or death moment, vulnerability becomes unavoidable.
I never even got a chance to tell you I'm like in love with you, Wendy.
Listen, Dipper, I'm like super flattered, but I'm too old for you.
She doesn't give false hope or mixed signals, just a straight no. Dipper respects her decision.
Every new Toyota comes with Toyota Care, a maintenance plan covering oil changes, tire rotations, roadside assistance, and more. It'll have you saying, "Let's go." Toyota. Let's go places.
Completely. And while he feels a bit down because of it, Wendy keeps treating him like the friend she always saw him as, and that's what he had always wanted. What Dipper did in that bunker is something most people I don't think can bring themselves to try, but we'll come back to why that matters later and how you can do the same thing yourself if you need to. Clear rejection here protected Dipper from wasting months or years pining after something he could never have. But there's something worse than unclear answers. When your feelings are completely invisible. Every morning, Isabella shows up at Phineas and Ferb's backyard with that same costume.
What's
She doing?
Comes a daily ritual, showing up, showing some interest, hoping today will be the day that Phineas finally sees her differently. But there's a difference. One key difference that separates Isabella from all the others. She never paused her life while waiting. In Summer Belongs to You, they travel to Paris, the city of love. When Phineas focuses on repairing their aircraft instead of the romance, Isabella helps with the mission because she genuinely cares about their friendship and adventure and leaves her feelings behind for the moment. It's No Picnic shows Isabella planning the perfect romantic picnic in the park. When Doof's teleportinator accidentally removes everyone else, creating the private moment she's been wanting, they share a sweet time under a tree. But when it doesn't spark romantic recognition in Phineas, Isabella still doesn't see it as failure. She just enjoyed the moment for what it was. Throughout the entire series, Isabella maintains her role as Fireside Girls leader, goes on her own adventures, builds friendships, and lives fully. She never puts her life on hold, waiting for Finn to notice her differently, even though she loves to drop by and ask what he's doing all the time. And that's the lesson that Isabella teaches about one-side love. You can care deeply about someone without shrinking your world to fit around them. One-sided love becomes truly destructive only when you pause everything else, waiting for it to become mutual, and when you obsess over it and do everything for that person when there's no recognition back. And the fact that she actually built her own life made all the difference in the end. In Happier Age, when Phineas and Isabella finally get together as adults, it's not because she convinced him or wore him down. It's because she stuck by him as a friend and became someone that was genuinely worth choosing. If you're recognizing yourself in any of these characters, you might be wondering why one-sided love feels so compelling in the first place and why we stick to it so hard. Why do we keep investing in people who aren't choosing us back? And why do we have such trouble confronting them and ourselves about this? It feels like love because your brain treats uncertainty and the possibility of love and romance like romantic potential, and it gives you mixed signals like slot machine rewards. Just anticipating it gives you some of that reward itself. That makes it almost impossible to quit. And once you see and understand what keeps you hooked, you can finally break the cycle and either start building a life with someone or get the answer that you perhaps don't want. But at least it's an answer. Because a lot of the time, that answer, that closure, is what can break you out of the cycle. Like how Mordecai spent years caught between two women, never able to choose. You might think indecision was his problem, but there's a moment at Muscle Man's wedding in Dumped at the Altar that reveals what was really keeping him hooked. And it's the same psychological mechanism that makes slot machines addictive, that constant chase. You're almost there, always on the brink, almost winning every time. Throughout the series, Margaret gives him attention, then moves away for college. CJ shows interest, then pulls back when Margaret returns. Just enough positive responses from each of them, just enough possibility to keep him hoping, but never enough to feel secure and certain enough in either. This creates the almost treadmill. Each text from Margaret, each smile from CJ, each moment of connection hits Mordecai's brain like that final slot slowly turning towards a jackpot. The uncertainty becomes more addictive than actual relationship satisfaction would be. During Muscle Man's wedding, Mordecai hijacks the ceremony to give a rambling speech about his own romantic confusion. He discusses his uncertainty about love while refusing to acknowledge CJ's feelings, likely because he still has feelings for Margaret. And CJ's response, by running out of the wedding, isn't an overreaction. That is self-respect. She finally realizes that Mordecai isn't choosing between two people. He's choosing himself and is addicted to the uncertainty. The brain chemistry of maybe this time kept him hooked on people who were emotionally unavailable. Just like the slot machine, Mordecai's addiction to mixed signals destroyed some real possibilities with people who were actually interested in him. But his relationship complexities are nothing compared to Brian Griffin's, the final example before we'll finally look at some characters figured out how to break the cycle entirely. Brian calls himself a nice guy. He helps Lois, he listens to her problems, he positions himself as better than Peter, and that makes him entitled to love, or at least according to him. We see this in Play It Again, Brian, when Peter neglects Lois and Brian gets some alone time with her. Brian believes that his history with their family gives him some kind of special access to her. He's been there for years, like a family member, and he knows her better than Peter does. When he makes an aggressive sexual pass at Lois, he's leveraging their entire shared history as permission to cross boundaries. In Single White Dad, when Lois breaks her leg, Brian sees an opportunity again, hoping that caregiving, plus their long history, will find...
Welcome, Nick. Come on in.
Don't be rude. Say good morning to Neve.
Finally transform into romantic access. But when faced with the unglamorous reality of her condition, the smell, the bodily functions, the actual vulnerability, the human being behind all of that, he's repulsed. Brian never loved Lois the person, he loved the fantasy of earning her through nice behavior. Brian's story teaches the harshest lesson about one-sided love. No amount of investment in the other person, emotional, temporal, or otherwise kind of emotion or obsession with someone really creates any kind of romantic debt. And it doesn't mean that your relationship with that person is anything similar to what's inside your head. Friendship plus effort plus years of proximity does not equal permission to cross boundaries when someone says no. You have to ask, you have to be clear, you have to communicate. All of these assumptions that Brian makes are all in his head, are all in this one-sided relationship that he made to get access to her. So how do you actually rein your heart and brain back in when they've been caught in these psychological traps for months or years? When intermittent reinforcement has you addicted to maybe, when projection has you loving someone who doesn't really exist, when entitlement has you treating nice as currency. These upcoming characters will show you exactly how to break free of that. But before we continue, remember to give this video a like, subscribe if you haven't, and let us know in the comments down below what one-sided romance was actually handled in a very healthy way. Alright, going back to Dipper and Wendy. Dipper's confession shows exactly why clarity is the only thing that can set you free. Dipper's approach works because he removes the ambiguity that's been draining him for months.
I'm like in love with you, Wendy.
When you finally just ask without explanations or justifications, you're not just seeking an answer, you're ending the exhausting loop of wondering and interpreting signals. Notice what happens after Wendy says no. Dipper doesn't complain, he doesn't negotiate, he doesn't ask follow-up questions about why not. He just accepts her boundaries completely, and their friendship not only survives, but thrives because the uncertainty is finally gone, and he understands that he can go after other people and doesn't have to worry about sacrificing a potential future romantic relationship with someone who knows that she's not right for him. Dipper discovers what everyone avoiding this kind of conversation needs to learn. A kind no hurts once, but ambiguity drains you forever. When someone gives you a clear answer, when you finally have that conversation, you finally know where you stand. And knowing where you stand is the only place where real connection can begin. But getting your answer is just step one, because your brain will also still try to convince you that no doesn't really mean no. This is the hardest step, because it requires you to admit something painful. Most of what you thought you had wasn't real. Pearl's journey from devotion to recovery in Steven Universe shows us what this grief actually looks like. When she finally stopped serving Rose's memory and started rebuilding her own identity and learning what history really showed, she had to face a brutal truth, that the relationship she built her entire existence around was largely a one-sided projection. When you cross out everything that might not have been mutual, you're usually left with much less than you thought. Sometimes nothing at all. But Pearl's recovery over time teaches us that grief over lost love can be a bridge to rediscovering who you actually are. Not a permanent home where you can stay forever, not an attachment to someone, and not your relationship to specific people, but you as you. Every day you spend loving someone who can't or won't love you back is a day stolen from building a life that someone could actually want to join and dedicate themselves to. Toph in Avatar: The Last Airbender also shows us what recovering from one-sided love looks like when handled really well. When she realizes that Sokka isn't available, she doesn't spiral into self-erasure like Pearl did. She's a strong, independent woman. She feels the disappointment, she processes it quickly, and she moves forward without making Sokka responsible for managing her feelings. She really wanted to be independent and emotionally mature and strong because of her upbringing, and she didn't want to force her feelings onto Sokka when it wasn't right. Sometimes getting that no answer is necessary, but sometimes it's not enough when you're still getting those mixed signals, like the occasional text that makes you think maybe, or the friendly interaction that feels like more than just friendship. Which is why Mordecai had to try something drastic. After Mordecai destroys his friend's wedding and loses CJ, something interesting happens. He disappears for 2 weeks, and it's the best thing he ever did. When Rigby finds him essentially hibernating after the wedding disaster, he's detoxing from the addiction to the mixed signals itself. So no social media stalking or asking mutual friends for updates, nothing like that. And during this period, Mordecai stops treating uncertainty like a puzzle to solve. When he finally comes back, it's for laser.
Get 2 slices and a Pepsi for just $8. Only at Pilot and Flying J. See you out here. Taxes was chasing updates and getting nowhere.
Tag with Rigby. Normal life that has nothing to do with romance. Reshifting his focus. The show's 25-year flash forward proves that this approach worked. Mordecai ends up with someone completely new, not Margaret or CJ. He had just let life happen and he met someone. The cycle only broke when he physically removed himself from the pattern, thought to himself, what am I doing? And figured out that he had to live life honestly and clearly with his friends and not allow the mixed signals to get in the way of certainty. That's what most people struggling from one-sided love miss. Your brain can't detox from intermittent reinforcement if you keep feeding it random rewards. If you allow every maybe text, every friendly interaction to reset that addiction timer. The crumbs keep you starving because they're just enough to prevent you from finding an actual meal. Consistency or nothing. Either someone chooses you clearly and specifically, or you choose yourself clearly and specifically. Get that conversation going and stop draining yourself. Mordecai's approach worked here, but he had to completely give up on his chances for dating either Margaret or CJ and to just allow himself to find someone new. Which raises the uncomfortable question, can one-sided love ever become mutual, or is walking away almost always the only option if it allows yourself to find clarity in the moment? For that answer, we have to look at Futurama. Fry chased Leela for years with grand gestures and romantic stunts, but their relationship only became real when he stopped trying to convince her and started doing something completely different. Over the course of Futurama, Fry gradually stops performing and starts just showing up because he enjoys her company. This mirrors what Isabella figured out through Phineas and Ferb. She maintained her feelings while living fully with her own activities and friendships. She didn't pause her life while waiting for reciprocation. And when they finally get together and act your age, it happens because they both grew as complete, solid individuals who chose each other, not because one convinced the other. By Futurama's finale, Fry's proposal to her comes from a place of clarity in his mind, one of the only places.
All this time I've been wondering if I can spend my life with her. But what I realize now is I can't spend my life without her.
This is a moment about two people recognizing what they already have together, just like Phineas and Isabella. Where convincing ends, love can begin. When you stop trying to win someone in a grand romantic gesture or through waiting until they finally recognize you, and then you start actually building a life worth enjoying and worth joining, You become attractive for the right reasons, and you will attract someone who will be a good partner. Maybe it's not the person you're opining for and have this one-way relationship with. Maybe it's a third person, but it'll become a life where the other person will want to join, and you won't have this one-sided lack of communication. You can't love someone properly until you're also okay loving yourself and being alone and being the right type of partner and person for someone else to choose as well. The people who chase love the hardest usually get it the least, while people who build complete lives and friendship circles and hobbies and relationships get to choose among them and have the best opportunity to share their life with someone with a strong love. And if one-sided love is something you're still experiencing, also check out our video on the dark side of chasing love. It'll give you some more insights that you could use to grow out of this spiral. And speaking of growing, why not help us grow our channel by giving us a subscribe, a like, and a comment down below. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.
At Toyota Service Centers, you can count on genuine parts and certified technicians, like this guy. Race ya.
Every new Toyota comes with Toyota Care. That's the value you can expect from Toyota. Toyota Service Centers. Keep your Toyota a Toyota.
My name's RJ Decker. I'm a private investigator. I am this close to proving it was a murder for hire. Let's not go well.
RJ Decker, Tuesdays on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Some of the very best episodes of Batman the Animated Series are the ones where Batman barely shows up at all. That might sound counterintuitive for a show with his name on it, but it's one of the series' strengths. Batman's presence is so strong that it's still felt, even when he's not in the room. And the episode POV is a perfect example of this. Now, granted, this isn't the very best episode, but it's still a thrilling story about potential police corruption, with no costumed criminal threatening the city, and Batman's barely in it. This is as close as the series gets to a police procedural drama, where the focus shifts away from capes and gadgets and onto a small group of police officers that have come off of a bust gone wrong. In episodes like this, Batman becomes less of a lead character and more of a gravitational force, bending everything around him. POV understands that idea completely. Batman is present at times, but rarely central. He certainly doesn't say very much. For the majority of the episode, Batman is more of a half-remembered figure described under interrogation lights. The story is driven by how he is perceived by the three officers. Each version of events reshapes him, turning the same man into a menace, a miracle, or a fellow professional depending on who's speaking. By pulling Batman into the background, the episode allows Gotham's police to take center stage. Their anxieties, egos, and assumptions become the real engine of the story. That's why POV works so well. It isn't great in spite of Batman's limited screen time. I'd argue that it's great because of it. When Batman steps back, other characters are given the chance to shine. Now, this episode borrows very heavily from the film Rashomon, in which eyewitnesses with different accounts of a murder share their stories, and it's up to the audience to decide who is telling the truth. POV, meanwhile, is mostly about a disastrous raid that results in a factory burning down and the criminals getting away with the loot. Unlike Rashomon, we are shown exactly what happened, and we can tell when characters are lying or they are simply mistaken. The three officers, slovenly Detective Harvey Bullock, newbie Officer Wilkes, and the enthusiastic by-the-books Officer Montoya are interrogated by Lieutenant Hackle from Internal Affairs, while Commissioner Gordon looks on. Hackle believes that at least one of the officers intentionally sabotaged the raid to steal the money, but he's not sure who. The interrogation scenes act as the episode's backbone. Stripped of rooftops and chase music, the story unfolds under harsh lights, with 3 chairs, a table, and a man who already thinks he knows the answer. It's a clever bit of misdirection. The flashbacks provide a lot of action, but the real drama is happening in the present, where every pause, glance, and defensive gesture matters more than any explosion. Ultimately, Hackle isn't there to understand what happened, he is there to assign blame, close the file, and move on. The truth doesn't even seem to be all that important to him. Each officer knows that the wrong phrasing could end a career, so they are sincere in what they say. The episode structure reinforces that idea. We're shown the events of the night from the perspective of each officer. Bullock was first on the scene, and in his eagerness to catch the crooks, he ended up ruining everything. Montoya and Wilkes tried to pick up the pieces, but by that point it was too late. In Bullock's fistfight with the crooks, a fire was started, and he almost burnt to death. Thankfully, Batman arrived and saved his life, although Bullock repays him by blaming Batman for his own mistakes. And this is really psychologically revealing. First of all, Bullock went before his backup arrived, indicating confidence in his own abilities. But most importantly, he refuses to admit any mistakes, even though he has to know that he was the one who accidentally alerted the thieves. It's far easier for him to blame Batman than admit fault. There was a cut scene from this episode that would have talked about Bullock's youth, where his overbearing father had taught him that teamwork was for suckers, and that the only person he could rely on was himself. That was cut for time, as were several other scenes, and this has an impact on the episode overall, which I will get to in a moment. Following Bullock's dramatic rescue, Montoya and Wilkes arrive on the scene and split up to take out the thieves. Wilkes pursues the criminals that were seen leaving on foot, but they try to run him over. Batman drops in and takes out the tyres with his weaponry, and from Wilkes' perspective it looks like Batman has fired sparks from his hands to blow out the tyres, and simply gestured towards the truck door to blow it off. When Wilkes testifies to this, he does it with pure sincerity. We can see Batman's gadgets being used, but what this demonstrates is how Batman uses the shadows to misdirect witnesses. Unlike Bullock, Wilkes is not lying. We can completely understand where he's coming from, but we know that he is mistaken. So if Bullock is an arrogant liar and Wilkes is a naive rookie, then Montoya is the bastion of truth. During her scene, she heads into the burning building where the loot was being kept and tries to arrest the crooks. However, one of the men is armed with a massive drill that they had used to break into the safe, and he overpowers her. Once again, Batman returns to save the day. Now, there's a very interesting scene that was cut out from this fight. Initially, the script called for the man with the drill to menace Montoya with it. However, when broadcast standards and practices saw the scenes, they couldn't help but interpret a towering man thrusting a massive drill into wooden boxes to intimidate a woman as a metaphor for attempted sexual assault. Bruce Timm had described how that scene got them all in a lot of trouble. Of course, that wasn't their intention, and once that was pointed out, they were mortified and gladly cut the segment. But it does alter the pacing of the fight. Note how Batman just kind of drops in before anything can happen. And this has a knock-on effect to later parts of the episode. Regardless, in the struggle, the burning roof collapses, seemingly killing Batman. Upon hearing her story, Hackle suggests that Montoya may be lying, and she takes it personally. Again, another scene would have shown Montoya's childhood where she was deeply ashamed of being branded a liar, hence her rigid morality. But this too was cut for time. With the three officers' versions of events captured for the record, Hackle suspends the trio and has them hand over their badges and guns. There's some really solid character work on display in the way each of them acts. Wilkes is up first and mournfully hands over his badge and gun. Bullock casually flings his badge and slams down his gun, making his displeasure clear. We can tell that the law and order part of his job, represented by his badge, is less important to him than force, his gun. And Montoya can hardly believe what's happening. She hangs back almost as if the whole thing is a cruel joke and has to be told a second time. When she complies, she maintains eye contact with Hackle while he stands there, arms folded with his eyes closed, willfully blind to the situation. By the time the episode enters its final act, POV has already made its argument about truth, memory, and authority. Now, we all know that Batman hasn't really died, of course not, it's his show. Instead, the crooks kidnapped him for their boss. The police, ironically, don't solve the case by following procedure. The breakthrough comes because Montoya ignores it. Suspended, disarmed and officially sidelined, she follows a lead. One of the criminals was overheard talking about a dock, and acts on her own. Without backup or clearance, she finds the location of the stolen loot and helps to save Batman. This is where the episode indicts rigid authority. After a series of fistfights, Montoya calls in backup to bring in the gang. Hackle arrives on the scene and objects on principle. She was suspended! It doesn't matter that the gang is captured or the money was recovered. What matters to him is that the rules were bent. Commissioner Gordon's response is indicative of his kind of policing. He doesn't argue the technicalities, instead he grabs Hackle by the collar, pulls him in close and tells him that the case is closed. And as far as he's concerned, the 3 officers are exonerated. He then reaches into Hackle's pocket and pulls out their confiscated badges and hands them back. As far as Gordon is concerned, results matter more than posturing, and justice matters more than optics. Now, I know that some critics have pointed out one hole in the plot around the leader of the gang. Throughout the episode, the criminals keep referring to their boss as if he's someone important enough to stay off-screen. Someone powerful enough to watch events unfold from a distance, and someone we may recognise. The story treats his identity like a secret worth withholding, and then when the moment comes, that secret simply evaporates. Montoya catches the boss, and he is nobody. Unarmed, faceless, and completely interchangeable. Interestingly, the episode originally intended for Hackle to be revealed as the criminal's boss, tying authority and corruption together, which would explain why he was so enthusiastic about blaming the 3 officers. The twist was cut due to the prevailing morality of the time. Censors wouldn't allow the little kiddies to even think that the authorities could be bad. But I'd argue that this was still a wise move. It allows Batman to remain the central focal point of the story, rather than complicating things by bringing up hypocrisy, deception and corruption. I also have to credit director Kevin Altieri for his role in streamlining the script, particularly trimming the clunky childhood flashbacks. His philosophy was simple: show, don't tell, and trust the audience to follow along. He was always willing to cut or rewrite scenes for the betterment of the episode. While this could frustrate the writers, in POV it sharpened the focus, letting Batman's influence remain the central force without distraction. By the time Batman resurfaces in the final act, he dominates the scene. He dismantles the criminals with precision and authority without undermining Montoya. His presence is brief but absolute and demonstrates why his influence can still be felt even when he's not around. The story shows that Batman doesn't need to dominate the screen time to shape the story. He doesn't even need to speak all that much because we already know who he is. His influence is felt in the way people lie, the way they remember, and the way they justify themselves under pressure. Montoya's decisive actions in the final act reflect the way Batman's principles ripple through Gotham. She improvises, acts courageously, and enforces justice in his absence. In this way, the episode shows that Batman doesn't need to be the one in every fight. His ethos guides those around him, even when he's off-screen. POV clearly demonstrates how Batman works as an idea, not just a constant presence. By pushing him to the margins, the episode reveals what Gotham looks like when people are left alone with their consciences, their fears, and their versions of the truth. This shows us that Batman stories don't have to focus on what he does. They can be about what everyone else does when he isn't there, and that is just as valid.
Transferring credits into WGU was it was a great experience. I went to 6 or 7 other universities, and WGU just said, "Here, send it here, and we'll take care of it." It was seamless, and I knocked out almost 3 years worth of credits, and I did it in about 14 months.
Learn more.
Okay, that's it for this essay. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, tell all your friends about me. You know how YouTube works. If you really liked the video and feel like tossing a buck or two my way, please consider using the thanks button, because every little helps. And if you have really enjoyed my work, you might want to pick up a copy of my book, Rogues Gallery. It features 22 essays on villains from Batman the Animated Series. There's a beautiful cover by Batman the Animated Series background artist John Calmette, a foreword by director Dan Rieber, and a moving segment from the late Kevin Conroy sharing his thoughts on life, love, and loss. Plus, an exclusive essay on the Condiment King that will never be made into a video. Rogues Gallery is available worldwide on Amazon, both digitally and in softcover. Finally, channel No villain has ever truly beaten Batman. None of the killers, the masterminds, or the monsters. Hell, he's even had fistfights with literal gods and come out on top. But sometimes Gotham doesn't need a villain to take him down. Sometimes it's enough for him to see that the city never really changes, no matter how many times he saves it. During his quiet moments, the thought enters his mind that Gotham's already fallen and he's the only one still pretending it hasn't. Maybe he's just propping up the ruins because he doesn't know what else to do. That's what the Batman the Animated Series episode I Am the Night is about. There's no supervillain with a grand scheme to unravel here. Really, it's about a man who's tired, depressed, and unsure if he's ever truly made a difference. And the real strength of this episode is that, yes, everything Batman feels is valid. There really is only so much one person can do, but the fact that he's doing something every night is incredibly powerful. That's the message that hums beneath the gloom of I Am the Night, that the small victories still matter. That even when the world refuses to change, the act of trying still has value. Every little helps, and sometimes that's enough to keep the darkness at bay. For those that haven't seen the episode, the basic premise is that on the anniversary of his parents' murder, Batman feels gloomy. Well, gloomier than usual. The Penguin has just been acquitted because of Batman's involvement in his arrest, and the tide of scum and villainy shows no sign of lessening. Just to linger on that point about the Penguin for a moment. While BTAS episodes didn't air in chronological order, we'd already seen the kinds of things he was doing. Kidnapping, attempted murder, theft. So to see him walk free on a technicality is understandably upsetting for Batman. Even when he meets with Leslie Tompkins to place a rose in memorial of his parents, he couldn't even take a moment to mourn. Crime just doesn't rest. To make matters worse, Commissioner Gordon, the symbol of justice in Gotham City, was gunned down during a raid. Batman was supposed to be there, but he was delayed saving a small-time crook nicknamed Wizard from being assaulted. Once he arrives, he helps the police turn the tables on the crooks, and their leader, Jimmy Jazzman Peak, is arrested. But in the chaos, Jazzman got a shot off and seriously wounded Gordon. Batman blames himself for Gordon's injury. If he had got there sooner, then things might have been different. And this is a key personality trait of Batman's. He treats every failure in Gotham as his fault, which speaks to his almost pathological need for control, as though he could personally fix every broken thing if he just worked harder. But this mentality is what has led to his feelings of burnout. He has been trying too hard, taking on too much responsibility for any reasonable person to handle. And it's really fascinating to see how each character reacts to Commissioner Gordon getting shot. His shooting is symbolic of Gotham's conscience being wounded. He's an authority figure who believes in Batman, so when he falls, Batman's faith in himself falls along with him. Batman internalizes his feelings of guilt. He sees Gordon's injury as proof that he's failed. There's just too much for one man to deal with. His reaction is inward and self-punishing. It's the mindset of someone who thinks the world only spins because he's pushing it. It's also survivor's guilt turned inward until it eats through his emotional armor. Harvey Bullock.
Want to know how to beat cancer? Be more like cancer.
Meanwhile, externalizes it. He was the one that pushed Gordon to start the raid before Batman arrived. It's now or never, he argued. And he didn't notice Gordon had been wounded until after the fact. He definitely blames himself. He's angry, volatile, desperate for someone else to blame, and he chooses Batman. Not because he truly believes it's his fault, but because it's easier to throw a punch than to face helplessness. Bullock's guilt manifests as aggression, a defensive reflex for a man who cares more than he'll admit. Barbara Gordon and Robin represent the opposite energy. They are the idealists, still burning with youthful conviction that good will prevail. They haven't been beaten down yet by time or failure. Their insistence on hope isn't naive, though. It's necessary. It's what Batman himself has forgotten. Commissioner Gordon blames himself too. He thinks that he's too old, not spry or at the height of his power, like he perceives Batman to be. And that's the funny thing. His regret lines up perfectly with Batman's. Both men fear that their best days are behind them. This web of reactions shows the spectrum of grief that defines Gotham. Everyone feels responsible, but no one truly is. Except for Jazzman, who actually fired the shot. but the shared guilt binds them in a way that's genuinely human. Ultimately, it's not about who's to blame, but how each of them reacts to failure. And speaking of Jazzman, I think that the real strength of this episode is that while he is technically the villain of the story, he's a complete nobody, somebody that Batman wouldn't bother to punch for a second time. I think that the story would be completely different if Gordon had been shot by, say, Two-Face or the Riddler. By not including a major villain, the episode really underscores the fact that there's more to Gotham's dire situation than costumed criminals, whose crimes almost seem quaint compared to everyday violence. However, I'd argue that the real antagonist is hopelessness itself. It's a clever subversion that proves the most dangerous threats to Batman are internal. While Jazzman only appeared in this episode, he returned in the pages of Batman The Adventures Continue Season 2, Issue 3, which was written by Alan Burnett and Paul Dini. Here he was expanded to being one of the killers of the Bertinelli family, who got musical notes tattooed on his body after every kill. Essentially, he was the DCAU's version of Mr. Zsasz. It's a solid story where Batgirl, of all people, has to protect him from the Huntress, who wants to avenge her murdered family. But in the episode, he really is a petty nobody. He had a grudge against Gordon for busting him in the past, and when he saw the chance to get even, he took it. He got a small taste of infamy after shooting Gordon, and decides that in order to truly cement his reputation, he has to escape from prison and finish Gordon off. It's the threat to Gordon's life that causes Batman to shake off the cobwebs and get back to action. Jazzman is perfectly representative of the problem Gotham faces. Gotham is full of these unremarkable, ordinary men who are bitter, twisted, and think that the world owes them something. Batman fights against men like him all the time. So you can completely understand why Batman